I don't have to introduce the lodge to you all. You all know the lodge. And so what some of y'all want to hear is who I am, since I am new to the Keweenaw for the most part. And then what some of our guiding principles will be going forward here at the lodge, since this will be the first time that the lodge has been completely owned by a private entity as opposed to the Keweenaw County here. So basically, Keweenaw Resort LLC is the organization that I set up to purchase the lodge, and so you'll see that as the legal entity, but we're still doing business as the Keweenaw Mountain Lodge. If you've come up to the lodge over the last 35 days, you probably have seen not too much of a change. That was done on purpose, because what happens is we wanted to keep things moving forward. All right? So, before going into the lodge, I just want to say thank you to Jason for the 1 million cups here. I am partial to the 1 million cups and the Kauffman Foundation. My dissertation was funded by the Kauffman Foundation at the University of Louisville when I was looking at resourceful financing of startups. And so I am actually a professor of entrepreneurship, and so I try to practice what I preach here. All right? Okay, we are open to the public. I know that has been some of the questions when we actually moved from the Keweenaw County ownership to a private entity. We will be the Keweenaw Mountain Lodge. The staff that you see around you here, I was meeting with them prior to the talk here, back in the back there, but this is who we are, and so it's the people here. A wilderness resort at the top of the Keweenaw. We are as far north as we can go with Copper Harbor here. Would you agree? Right? Now, if it was cold enough, we'd be snowing too, so it's been enough rain over the last couple of days that we could have had probably a couple of feet of snow already on the ground there. So, all right, you will see the website is KeweenawMountainLodge.com. Again, keeping with that branding of the name. So Keweenaw Resort LLC is the legal entity. Keweenaw Mountain Lodge is the doing business as entity. All right. So some people ask, why did I actually buy the lodge? One, history. I mean, there is an immense years of history here at Keweenaw Mountain Lodge, starting back in 1934 with FDR, the New Deal, WPA. I could have invested my money anywhere. What happens is I tend to invest basically my money where there's actually meaning. And so there's a lot of meaning in this building, the golf course, the property, the Keweenaw, Copper Harbor. I also think it's a good investment. I wouldn't have done it to lose money, right? So I think there is a lot of value in the property that you're sitting on. And I look to improve that from the lodge perspective, the Copper Harbor perspective, as well as the Keweenaw. And then finally, I tend to like adventure. Right? So we're sitting in an area that I think is about adventure tourism, about outdoor tourism. You're seeing the mountain biking community here. You'll see silent sports, you'll see motorsports. Right? Some of the questions you might have is, what are we going to do in the wintertime? Right? And so we'll kind of go through that conversation to figure out, are the cabins actually ready? Do people actually want to be up here in the wintertime? Some people know that my son goes to Tech, and so I have a connection to Tech. He's a third-year mechanical engineer. He's the one that's brought us up here 3 or 4 years ago when he spent a summer up here with a Tech program. And that kind of brought us here. I bought a couple buildings in Calumet earlier this year, working on the historical 5th Street there. So we have Keweenaw Coffee Works here in regards to what they've done. We bought their old buildings. They can go into a bigger building. And so if you can, go visit their facilities down in Calumet. That kind of shows something about what I believe in regards to this area in the Keweenaw. Just to let you know, I monitored the lodge in terms of when it was on the market. It wasn't something that was a flash in the bucket. So LoopNet is one of the sites that I look at from my investment perspectives. My family invests a lot in real estate, so we'll use CREX, LoopNet, our own brokers, and so forth. The county put the lodge up on LoopNet over a year and a half ago. And so that was a $1.5 million piece. I didn't feel comfortable in buying at that price. And so watched it and went for auction. Some of y'all know that I was the second high bidder. I wasn't the highest bidder, and so worked out to where ended up buying out the previous bidder's position to make it happen. So, all right, so it's not something that is overnight. It's something that actually has been monitored and run. I wasn't here, by the way, for the auction. I was the person that was on the computer back in Kalamazoo with my spreadsheets open and looking at the numbers. Who am I? A professor. So I actually teach for a living. I ended up being a professor at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, where I grew up. I've come back into Austin, Texas after 30 years. My dad passed away, and so family's pretty prominent in Austin. It's not the barbecue family that's from Taylor, just north. It's actually the airport family, and so we've owned a lot of land in Austin, so my family's been in the real estate business for a while. So this is down my alley. I also do investments in startups, and so I'm an angel investor. I probably put money into about 25 companies in the last 12 to 18 months. So that's kind of stuff that I like to do and get involved. This is one of them. And so ends up being to where we move this thing forward in a different fashion. It's not a tech startup like I usually invest in. I got a couple investments in ag tech, Grow Guru, Amber Ag, which is from one of my alma maters, the University of Illinois, and so forth. So tend to do that. I'm a golfer by skill. So I grew up trying to play golf professionally. I'm at the same age as Phil Mickelson and Jim Furyk. I wish they would have won the Ryder Cup this last week, but I was sitting on the driving range hitting golf balls at the Austin Country Club, and Tom Kite's sitting next to me and hitting balls, and so he was over in Paris and had some interesting conversations, with the members at the club about why, we didn't win in terms of the U.S. there. So, but I played against Jim Furyk and Phil Mickelson growing up, so it's interesting there. So you'll hear some things with me on the golf. Golf is secondary here. So you'll see that the primary piece is going to be the outdoor adventure tourism piece. Once we get that righted, then we can sit there and go back and have fun with a golf course. I've told Bill, who's the superintendent, that I want the greens to be excellent, I want the tees to be okay, and the fairways how they may be based upon the rain. And then once we get the cash flow righted, then we can come back and play and have some fun with the golf course there. But I believe this area is about adventure tourism, outdoor tourism, being out in nature, and so forth. So one thing that we've been working on is close to close. And so it's something that Harvey came up with, the general manager. Basically what happens is we had to get to close the property. This was not buying the county. It's not buying shares of an entity. It would have been nice. It would have been a lot easier. I was talking with the staff is that if we had to just basically buy shares, it's basically a push of a button. But we had to take basically assets from the county and put them into a new entity. The employees had to basically be terminated from the county and then be hired by the entity that we set up. Licenses like the liquor license, the same thing. And so it was kind of a complex piece. We got to that September 5th. Had a few hiccups, but so far so good. The second piece is next week in terms of we're closing for the customers for the season October 16th. And so we're closing this winter. Didn't have enough data to be comfortable to keep going this winter. And so we closed that piece there. And then what happens is we'll actually look over the winter time, running some data on the cabins to see if they actually can be warm enough for the customers to actually work or not. And then ideally be open starting with 10 or 14 cabins next winter. Everything works out as planned. But as we know, not everything works out as planned. So, all right. The first 2 or 3 years, it's about the low-hanging fruit. You notice we have an online reservation system now. Let you know how that worked. Basically, we're fully booked this weekend. We were fully booked last weekend. And last Wednesday, when it's usually a dead piece, we were 77% basically full. And so, nice to see that change there. All right. And we'll open up May 2019. All right, put that piece there. All right. I'll run through these real quick and I'm going to open this to Q&A. I just want you to understand the guiding principles that we operate on. The Keweenaw, we want it to be fun, joyous, and adventuresome. That's what I believe the Keweenaw's balance. This is the big one here. How do you balance the history with the future? We want to be able to marry the history with the future to get to a vibrant and progressive present. That's going to be difficult, but that's the guiding principle we make decisions on. I work on little experiments. Not, okay, where I spend $1.8 million, okay, and do something, all right, but I do small things, figure out what's going to work, and then double down on that. That's the philosophy. Right? I also believe in growing the pie. Right? If you look at where I've lived, all right, in terms of Austin, the Boulder area, Kalamazoo, it's about growing the pie, not redistributing the pieces of that pie. So that means growing the pie for Copper Harbor, growing the pie for Keweenaw. We're not competing against people in Copper Harbor here at the Lodge. We're competing with the Vales as a team, right, of the Beaver Creeks of the world, the Powder Mountains of the world. Right? And then finally what happens is one of our big pieces here, okay, is employee housing. We don't live close to, our employees don't live close to us, do they? And so something that has been on my mind for a while is how do you actually figure out the employee housing so people can actually get to Copper Harbor and work easily, the Keweenaw, Mount Bohemia, and so forth, right? And so that's something that the Lodge is looking at. We're looking at, taking the motel and putting that as employee housing, doing the shuttles again. There used to be shuttles here. But I think it's a bigger question in regards to the community and figuring out how we can work there. Harvey and I were talking yesterday, do we go buy a piece of property that is in between here and Centennial, right, or Central Mine, right, to build some type of employee housing that would be affordable to the group here and help all the businesses in this area. Right? So finally, I'll conclude. All right, this is Brockway Mountain yesterday. I just want to show you things. We can see the sign close by, right? But we don't know where things are in the future. So we're still looking for that piece there in the fog there. So we take it step by step here at the Lodge. So open up to Q&A. Right?
Go right ahead. Anyone?
And I don't know if you can hear me. I'll keep the mic. If you want the mic, let me know. Okay.
Hi, my name is Lisa, and I just want to thank you for your openness. I think it's wonderful that you shared so much about the whole process. And I don't really have a super interesting question. It's just more of a kind of a wish. It would be really fun if in the future you could do something for Thanksgiving, because this would be a wonderful place to have Thanksgiving family event.
It would be, yeah.
Anybody else?
Anyone else?
I think one of the, not paramount, but always a good concern up here is communications. Maybe look at that in the future, because if you want to hold conferences up here and everything else, and you can't make a phone call out and so forth, I think it's critical to entice conferences, small businesses, seminars and so forth. If you can't communicate out of here, this beautiful facility will sit empty a lot of times. So I think we want to look at that and work with the community and those who have the authority to get the communication into Copper Harbor. I think it's almost almost a health issue, a safety issue. When people have an emergency, I had some friends that were on Hungary Falls, and they fell and they couldn't communicate. They had to drag themselves out. So I think that's something we should be looking at in this region, paramount. Thank you.
Well, especially with mountain biking too. I mean, Sam, have we had many accidents with mountain biking up here?
There's been a few, yeah.
A gross understatement.
I'm very concerned about, in the past, not having marketing for conferences and meetings. And I think conferences and meetings are key to the success of the Mountain Lodge and the greater Keweenaw Peninsula.
So I'm going to ask a question back in regards to, so I understand what's going on. Who handles marketing for the Keweenaw right now?
The small amount of marketing that is being done is funded by the Keweenaw Tourism Council, which is now called the Visitor Convention Bureau, and the Keweenaw Peninsula Chamber of Commerce, and a small amount from the Copper Harbor Improvement Association.
Thank you.
My name's Paul Rose. I'm from the Upper Peninsula here, down by Fayette, but I'm up here off and on. I'm involved in the arts, and one of the things that I find that the Boniface has done is they started these artist residencies around the Upper Peninsula. One of them that I attended was on Old Mission at Mackinac Island, and there's been a few others. And I thought maybe an artist residency here at the lodge could be something that would, include a lot of the artists in the area or the UP.
It goes with, anyone know Rabbit Island here? Andrew?
Yeah.
And so that would be great. And I think Andrew and his business partner would, it'd be nice to see what they're doing here in the Keweenaw. They bought a building in Calumet, and they're working on that piece there. What's the address of that building, Val? And
They're on the 200 block.
it's on the second 200 block there, piece there. So absolutely.
Great. The discussion about the marketing and the arts, I spent most of my life in Door County, Wisconsin, which I'm sure some of you are familiar with that. But, there's an example on how to market your area and market with the arts. I spent my career there as a consultant, and if you want an example of how to do it, and maybe in some cases how not to do it, there's a good place to look, and I'm sure the people there would be willing to talk with you.
Door County.
Door County, Wisconsin.
Thank you.
The peninsula that sticks out into Lake Michigan, northeast of Green Bay.
Yep. Okay.
Hi. I'm Shawn Rathbun. I live in Houghton. I think that we're hearing a common theme already, because that was like the #1 thing that I was coming up here, because this place is an incredible gem of our community, and marketing. I mean, a little bit will go a long way, and I think that that's key. I also feel like you've hit the nail on the head with targeting the outdoor adventure demographic, and I think it'll be very successful. And thank you for what you're doing.
Does everyone know how much money the lodge spent on marketing last year?
No.
Harvey, how much money did we spend on marketing last year? $500?
All right, a couple more questions.
Okay, John?
We spent $99 in Marquette.
John, my name is Larry Malloy. I'm the president of the Keweenaw County Historical Society. We have a long-term investment in the history of the lodge. A lot of displays, exhibits, etc. I'm here to make an offer to you that I really appreciate the fact that you're trying to marry adventure tourism and history. When it comes to the history part, give us a call. We'd be happy to share our resources with you and talk about things that we can do to let visitors know about the history of not just the lodge, but about the Keweenaw in general, because this really is a gem. And thank you for what you're doing. I'll give you my card.
Sounds good. Thank you.
You put your hand up.
Everybody in this place knows me.
He doesn't need a microphone.
I always got something to say.
Well, can I interject real quick?
Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Do you want to ask me my age again?
You are 48 years old. Young man.
So that was the first question that he asked me when he introduced himself.
Well, that does, have an indication of experience sometimes. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about advertising just for a second. Directly related to our business, the Rock Harbor Lodge at Isle Royal, for many years it was an underperforming business. It was expensive to go out there. And it was a nonprofit organization that ran that for a long time. National Park Concessions, and they finally sold it to really a major company called Forever Resorts, and they own resorts all over the world. I mean, they're just a mega corporation. It's private, and the owner of the company was the founder of Aloe Vera, that great lotion product, you know, whatever that is. It's all over the world. But anyway, the Park Service decided to reinvest in the Rock Harbor Lodge. In other words, do some infrastructure work. You know, they're in charge of refurbishing the buildings. But what Forever Resorts did, and it impacted our business tremendously. I mean, there are people going out to Isle Royale now all the time. We were full almost for 2.5 months straight. I don't know if anybody knows that, but you couldn't get on the boat, and a lot of it was lodge people. But if you notice, and I talked to the CEO on the boat this year, he came back from Isle Royale. The seaplane didn't run that day, so they were forced to take the Queen, and we talked about advertising. And they have done a tremendous amount of advertising. And I know my dad used to have a magazine called the Copper Country Anthem many years ago, back in the 70s, and I did advertising for that magazine. And you would not believe the amount of businesses that don't participate in advertising. I mean, I would say up to 65–70% of businesses don't advertise properly. And I'm here to tell you what they did out at Isle Royale. They are in the black for the first time in the last 3 years, based on they advertised, just for instance, in Lake Superior magazine. They have great ads there. They have really creative, beautiful ads, and it's made them money, and it's made us money. And so I just want you to know, I really support advertising, and I think this is what the Keweenaw Mountain Lodge needs to get off on, a great foot.
Thank you. All right, one more question, because we've got to, I saw your hand first, so.
There has to be one pessimist in the audience. I'm a banker, so of course risk, and you're an entrepreneur. My question is, it's all about the experience when they get here. And you look at the successful businesses in the harbor, you look at Don's boat, you look at Sammy and his wife's business, you look at the harbor house, you look at Aaron. What's the common theme? The owners on the premises with skin in the game. Nothing against the employees, but somebody has to have skin in the game here.
Yep. So first of all, I have skin in the game for the money, right? So just so y'all know, it was all bought with cash, banker on that piece there. So I didn't feel that I could actually finance it with a bank based upon the short pieces there. So that came out of my back pocket there. And then put money into it for working capital as well, and then I've actually have a line of credit that we've set up for the bank on that piece there. So Harvey and crew have that to work with there. We're still working out me being on the premises on the pieces there. I'll be up here during the summertime. The question will be how much. We're not sure about that. I spend time during the falls and the springs in Austin, and in the past I've spent the summers in Kalamazoo. And so Kalamazoo, not next door. It took us about 10 hours to get up here on Monday night after I flew up from Texas. My wife had the gelato business, and so we closed up the season there. We're opening up gelato business in Calumet with that piece there, so we'll be up because of that as well. So I don't know yet in regards to if I'm going to be up here 30 days out of the month or 5 days out of the month. So we're still working that piece out. So, but good point there. A business does better when you have people involved. So the question is, can we get the right people involved? Is that me? I don't know. In terms of, is it better to be hands-off on the owner piece there or not? As Harvey and I work through things. Can I mention it, Harvey? Can I mention it? Sure. Okay. So Harvey is retiring December 31st on the pieces there. So he and I, is a surprise to me. That wasn't in regards to, purchasing it on that there. So I kept the staff all on board. I wanted to, work with that piece there. They're here in amongst you all, so hopefully you guys can meet them as well. We'll be looking for a general manager. going forward. And so Harvey's last day, he said, would be December 31st. He came out of retirement to work on the transition of the lodge. And so I'd argue that it was a successful transition. It could easily have gone down. I know some of y'all were concerned that it's going to be closed up, be privatized and so forth. So, it's never going to be easy for that transition, but I think, it's good for the community on that piece there. So there's unknowns out there for that piece there. So we'll be looking for a general manager, starting January 1st in that piece there. So, thank you. Yeah.
And I guess the final question for you, John, is, and this is a Kaufman Foundation 1 Million Cups thing, is what can we as a community do to help support you in all these efforts? I mean, we're having a lot of different feedback from different areas, but is there anything else that you would like to hear or have in terms of support from the community here as you move forward?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a combination of employee housing and the philosophy of growing the pie. So if we have that philosophy and guiding principle, we'll figure out how to work together as a team and understand that we're not competing against one another. We're trying to grow that pie. People here basically are coming here choosing from Colorado. I mean, Sam and I have a connection in regards to the Vail area. And so we can talk about that piece there and why mountain towns are doing well. I think this area is prime for that mountain town piece there. You look at Mount Bohemia and how great they've been doing and so forth. So understand that philosophy is grow the pie, and we'll figure it out. So thank you. Appreciate it.